what is stonewalling in a relationship? Is it manipulation? In this video, we will look at what stonewalling is in a relationship, and we will further delve into knowing whether that is manipulation. Relationships have its ups and downs. One might as well say that there are downs because there are occasions where you feel that you've reached the highest point of the sky with the partners you love. And just as every up has a down, there will be times when you feel you have fallen to the depths and plunged into the deepest of miseries that a relationship can offer you. Norwegians have a beautiful word for what some people call to be the euphoric feeling of being in love. The walking on air feeling, where it just feels like you're gliding through this world with your body and soul being as light as one can think. And that is what they call forelsket. And this doesn't simply mean the feeling, but also the state of being in love. While everyone who is starting to fall in love has experienced this feeling Norwegians describe, this feeling doesn't really last forever. With time come other feelings too. There are meant to be frictions in your relationships, and as you encounter more and more different situations and get accustomed to each other's every little habit, the euphoric feeling, or what people call love's intoxication, doesn't always come about. There will be problems which will lead to bickerings, a few days where things go really frictional, and that time might seem like eternity. But in the end, both people in the relationship can change each other's behavior just a tad to make room for the other person's comfort. However, there are occasions when things don't get right at all. Things get worse. And this sense of a sinking ship is compounded when the other person tries to stonewall you. But what is stonewalling anyway? We will take a look at that shortly, but before that, we would like to ask you to encourage us to make more videos like this by simply sending us your like in the videos. In our effort to understand the people and relationships we build with them, we're making these videos for free. If you think our efforts are meritorious, you can also subscribe to our channel and hit that notification button. Okay, now let's get into the details of what stonewalling is. Stonewalling. Stonewalling is what a person does when he or she doesn't want to talk to you at all. All of your pledges, your requests are simply not answered. They fall on deaf ears. Your partner might just walk out on a conversation that you were having or simply refuse to talk to you at all. This is quite different from some door slams that people with other personality types such as INFJs use. An INFJ, for example, is someone who, when is done with a relationship, chooses to block every way for the other person to come back to his or her life. The phone doesn't ring, you have no way of contacting the person, and no apologies might ever be entertained. This is often referred to as an INFJ door slam. But stonewalling is not as brutal as that. It doesn't mean that you are going to get a door slam of the INFJ. It is just that the conversation is being shut down, and the possibility of interaction with the other person is also at its lowest. If you see any of the following symptoms, then you might have an inkling as to your being confronted with one. Discussing about one's relationship is disconcerting. The concerns of your partner is thoroughly dismissed. Unanswered questions and refusal to answer them. Next to no verbal communication such as eye contact. Any discussions that might cause stress are avoided. Stonewalling is not a really good tactic if you're in a relationship. The fact that you feel like being blatantly ignored by the other person or that there is no chance of redemption is not easy to put up with. If this is something that happens once in a lifetime, then it might not be all that troublesome. But many people find it hard to put up with it if it becomes a recurring phenomenon. What are some of the signs of stonewalling? Stonewalling is something that is as obvious as it can get, but the nuances might differ from person to person, and you might not notice it right away. Here are some of the most common signs of stonewalling. Molding the conversation into another topic when something difficult pops up. The case that the other partner is putting forth is completely dismissed by rolling the eyes or closing the eyes completely, digging up plenty of reasons not to talk, accusing the other person without discussing the current situation, a flat-out denial to answer questions, denying constantly that they are stonewalling you. If you see these signs, you mustn't always be afraid that the stonewalling is intentional. Sure, there are people who try to show a sense of superiority in the relationship by stonewalling you and playing mind games with you by doing so. But there are a whole bunch of people who might be stonewalling you not to show any sense of superiority, but for other reasons altogether. These reasons might be that they find the conversation to be extremely stressful and feel that they're not quite in the space to handle that right then and there. Some form of stonewalling takes place not to escalate the tension that is already existent between the two of you. Some people also tend to stonewall because they are afraid about the reaction their partners might show in case they go through with the argument. Causes. Stonewalling is something that affects us, and naturally so. Who wouldn't be a tad unsettled if their partner didn't even begin to start a conversation and flat out refused any form of nonverbal communication as well? But not all stonewalling is malicious. Fear, anxiety, and frustration lie at the very core of stonewalling someone. The following might be some of the causes as to why someone might decide to stonewall altogether. Some partners are emotionally passive, i.e., they are looking to avoid conflict. Stonewalling is a way to settle down in a situation where tempers as well as other emotions are flaring up. Some people believe that there are certain topics that are off the charts when it comes to relationships. Fear that the conversation might take the relationship out of the comfort zone. Some partners believe that the other person doesn't want to resolve the conflict, but is simply looking to play the blame game. A belief that all hope is lost and nothing can be recovered from the ruins of a relationship. Some partners also stonewall because they want to be seen as someone neutral. The stonewaller wants to perceive the other person as emotional or unreasonable. Stonewalling might have been learned from parents who want to manipulate their spouse. Sometimes stonewalling is putting the final nail in the coffin as well. Stonewalling is also sometimes a way of showing dominance over others. However, psychologists say that putting all the things and feelings inside you is not a healthy way forward. Often, stonewalling has been correlated with low self-esteem in people. Impacts of stonewalling in a relationship. Stonewalling, if not handled with care, can be a disastrous thing. It can ruin the relationship. And what's more, it leaves both the partners with some emotional damage that perhaps won't be cured for life. Imagine the baggage one takes from a relationship where he or she is stonewalled. The stonewalled person will always feel bitter, angry, hurtful, and confused, down to their very core. That will trickle its way down to their self-esteem, and the feeling of worthlessness and bouts of hopelessness will be recurring. Besides, how emotionally weak must one be in order to not talk out the things that are problematic? Or how can the stonewaller ever hope to put what they are feeling into words to their partner? And if that is not done, how can the relationship ever move forward? Further, if the problems are not sorted out, then the marital relationships that people are in will also go awry, and the lives of the children will be affected too. And if they pick up on these habits, these won't be good for them either. You might have seen people who have been impacted heavily by a person who has stonewalled them. Let us know how it impacted them. If you have suffered from stonewalling personally, how has it affected you? Let us know in the comments below. Is stonewalling manipulation? One of the most glaring questions to come forward all the time is whether stonewalling is manipulation. Well, this is a subjective thing. Sometimes stonewalling is a form of manipulation, while at other times it is not. We elucidated before that not all forms of stonewalling are malicious. We all have had a time in our lives when we never really wanted to talk to the other person, whether it be your friend, your mom, or any of the people you believe to be the most important thing. Sometimes just plainly ignoring what the other person is saying or trying to say is not manipulation. You just aren't in the right mood to talk. You can't say what you feel because you think that this is not the right time to talk. With tempers flaring, you have this in the back of your mind that saying things will only make matters worse. But at other times, stonewalling is manipulation. If stonewalling occurs regularly, then you should know that the relationship is going nowhere. Yes, there are things in a relationship that can't be talked about. How can one really begin to say why they fell in love? But there are other things such as abusive behaviors or certain words that the other person is not comfortable hearing that need to be talked about. If the other person is willing to duck difficult questions all the time, then stonewalling is probably about trying to shift the balance of power in a relationship. It also shows that the stonewaller is not really comfortable talking about his or her emotions and get to know the state of mind of the other person. Sometimes stonewalling gets too repetitive. The other person might be trying to signal that the relationship is over, and if things can't be said out loud and you need to resort to tactics like that, then it also talks so much about the psychological state of mind of the other person. If you are in a marital relationship, then stonewalling becomes all the more dangerous. Kids do pick up these soft signals of power shifting induced by stonewalling in the relationship between their parents and might emulate them in their later lives unconsciously. Stonewalling, like hitting someone with a stone, hits you hard, hits you really hard, and most often, the blows you receive as a result have deep scars. There are occasions when stonewalling is the only way to save an incident from taking a bad turn, as acting out neutral is necessary at times. But a complete cessation of any sort of body language, walking out of a conversation no sooner than a person talks about things that might be a tad touchy, or simply avoiding a healthy argument will lead the relationship nowhere. Both the partners need to recognize this, and the sooner this recognition takes place, the better. Okay, let us know in the comments below if you have ever heard instances of someone close to you having been stonewalled. And did you really think that there was any sort of manipulation there? Let us try to understand the subtleties of a relationship and try to have a better bond between people. We are committed to our efforts to do that. Don't forget to subscribe to us. In the meantime, you can watch the video on the screen.